All right. Well, welcome back to the Rice Report, everybody. Eric Rice here, your host. As always, we talk about the three things you're never supposed to talk about in public: money, politics, and religion. And these three things are boiling to the surface. Today, we are joined by a good friend of mine, Emerald Robinson, who is out there reporting on everything and anything. And we need more people who do that, because she's not looking to convince you of a topic. She's looking for the information that will allow you to draw your own conclusion, which is what reporting is supposed to be. So, Emerald, thank you so much for joining us here today. This is still a solemn week. We are 1 week ago, Charlie was shot. And so much stuff is swirling around. Nothing makes sense. I want to give you an open forum to, uncover the questions that you have, the things that you've learned. And let's just talk about what's happening in the last week here in America.
So many questions. That's what I would say, Eric. So many questions. What I'm encouraged by, I will say, because we have to look for some bright spots, right? Especially in such a dark week, is that more people are asking questions than I've ever seen before.
Mm-hmm.
And less people are accepting the official narrative, knowing it doesn't make sense, and understanding that we can't automatically, unfortunately, trust our institutions like the FBI and just digest what they try to feed us without scrutiny. So I did, more than anything, I've been asking questions. I've been listening, I've been watching, and I've been asking questions. And I did put that together on my Substack at emerald.tv. I've been putting my questions on X, trying to encourage dialogue, especially from people who might have some answers, that have experience in this or that. And I, again, am encouraged that there's been a lot of that engagement on my social media. What kind of questions? Well, I think the basic ones, like where's the autopsy? Where's the bullets? And I would say most importantly, and what is a real telltale sign to me, one of the biggest questions, why would the crime scene, Eric, for Charlie Kirk's murder be turned into a construction site and cleaned up so quickly?
In days.
In days. Almost immediately, let's be honest. Because you know what that's just like? That's just like the Butler rally.
Mm-hmm.
When the FBI went and sprayed the rooftop, which you would never do, cleaned it off. And all I can arrive at is that this is because this is really a cover-up. Because rule number one of murder investigations is that you never clean the crime scene. Think about it, if you've ever had to cover one, which I don't know if you have. There's tape around the murder scene for weeks even.
Weeks. Yeah.
Weeks. The police officers should have formed a perimeter around the entire crime scene immediately. But you see people moving about just after the assassination had occurred, and they'd, taken him to the hospital. Nobody would have been allowed inside that perimeter except detectives. I know Hollywood isn't always true, right? There's Hollywoodification, but that's one aspect of the formulaic crime series that is true. They all, in the story, remember, they always set up a perimeter. No one's allowed in except for the detectives.
I'll give you verification of this. When I was a kid, I'm from Chicago and Northwest Indiana, that area. So I still remember a shooting that took place in Walgreens years ago. The Walgreens was shut down for 2 weeks. The Walgreens was shut down. This is for two nobody gangbangers that shot each other. So that's factually true. Nothing gets cleaned in 24 to 48 hours. We also have a body that was treated in a casket and placed on television in 48 hours. When his wife spoke, like, these are very strange things.
I talked to former NYPD, and that was particularly shocking to them, what you just said right there. They said, never in all my years working in homicide did I ever see a body processed so quickly, even for cut and dry cases. When you pretty much knew what had happened, never would the body be processed that quickly.
In 48 hours. 48 hours. When my mom died, it took us 2 weeks to have the body treated to put into a casket. Now, I understand he's much more important in the grand scheme of things than my mom,
Right.
but that's the reference point that I have. And these questions are abound everywhere. The body was fully treated, right? The hands were even shown in a video with mysterious rings when people are talking about the rings. People are talking about everything. And I think that that's a good thing. But I also think that's where psyops flourish. They
That's
flourish
true.
when conversation comes about, and AI is now a real thing. Like, we don't have to worry about whether it'll come. It's here. And a lot of stuff is swirling around, but I try to stick to the basic facts. The lady Cynthia, who helps me with this podcast, her daughter works at the hospital they took Charlie's body to. They took his body to a hospital, and 48
She
hours
works
later, it was on
at the
camera.
one the body was taken to?
Correct.
Oh, wow.
Correct. And 48 hours later, no autopsy, body's treated, put in a casket, put on camera. These are very unusual things, extremely unusual things. No bullet. The bullet doesn't even 30-06 doesn't make sense. Anybody who's ever shot a gun knows that there would be an apple-sized wound, exit wound in the back of his neck if it was a 30-06.
That's been pointed out by a lot of first responders and ER nurses. I saw a couple ER nurses talking about that. And I had a gentleman on my show who was a scout sniper in the Marine Corps and also taught ballistics classes on my show on Lindell TV today. And he noted what they're saying is the bullet and what you see in the video of the wound do not line up. He also noted that he believes, and you broke this down, his name was Zeb Boykin. I posted his video on my X. He said he was surprised because he realized somebody had posted it, and he started getting all this traffic and comments. And it turned into, like I said, a lot of conversation, with everyone looking at it and saying whether they believed it or not, or what they saw. And it's kind of a collaborative investigative effort, right? But he felt that also the trajectory of the bullet, they are lying about.
Yep.
And he went through the video in minute detail and explained why, according to him, as a trained and experienced sniper, that it had to have come more like at the angle from behind. And he shows you on the pictures and multiple angles of the video why he believes that, and that was actually the exit wound, which I've also heard other medical professionals say on social media.
Yeah. But yet the end result is we got him. He's a radical left, confessed to the murder, radical leftist with a tranny roommate on Discord with full evidence and proof of this and a larger conspiracy. Like, none of this sits well. But it is interesting that the same people who questioned the FBI until the election now believe the FBI. Right. The same MAGA supporters are like, now cash is there, so it must be true. None of it makes sense. I'm not saying it's true or false. I have no idea. I'm not an investigator. But what we try to do as people in the media is ask questions and try to figure things out, or at least inspire thought to people to continue to question something until the truth is really known.
Well, another part of this story that has not set right with me the entire time, and is one of the initial developments in the story, as soon as the assassination happened, there's this guy that I've started calling the Forrest Gump of terrorist events. His name is George Zinn.
Zinn, yeah.
He was president of the event, and I'm sure you've talked about this, but he's the man who stands up. He's the older gentleman who stands up and yells, shoot me, right after the assassination takes place. And to me, he looks like a professional decoy. And why do I say that? Well, that's because essentially the public career of the 71-year-old George Zinn is that he appears to be a professional agitator.
Yes.
He appeared in a resurfaced video interview from September 11th. And wildly, this was September 10th, before the anniversary, the 24th anniversary of 9/11. I mean, what are the odds of that? Where in that interview from 9/11, the 9/11 videos, he said he knew Al-Qaeda was responsible for the attack. So that means that Zinn was saying he's a witness for the terrorist attacks, even though it appears that he was in Utah as a resident at the time. Then the guy, Zinn, reappeared in 2013 when he was arrested for making a terrorist threat to the Salt Lake City Marathon by offering to help place bombs. He pled guilty to that. He was actually charged and pled guilty. He only got probation for that, ironically.
Anyone else would be in jail.
They would. So his presence and his automatic standing up and saying, shoot me, points to his role, I believe, as a decoy. And that just points to something larger, even than what we're being told.
And it reminds me of a slogan of a certain intel agency, which is through deception, thou shalt wage war. And I'm going to talk about that before we get off here, because I think war is the end game of this assassination. And that is the Mossad slogan from Israel. Now, before this happened, there's a large group of people who are saying we need to investigate Israeli intelligence possibility of being involved. I'm not making an accusation. I certainly am not suicidal. So I think it's important to note that in the 3 months leading up to this, Charlie, who was a staunch defender of Christian Zionism and the support of Israel, was starting to make statements that were actually true about the genocide in Gaza, which is clearly a genocide. 142 nations around the world just voted to give them their own state to end the genocide. Won't do any good. You can give them their own state. They're still going to get slaughtered. They don't have weapons. They barely have electricity and running water. So fighting a war against the most premier technological warfighting force in the Middle East is a losing battle to begin with. And then he started making a comment that I think is the one that got him in trouble. And it may be the most useful comment to provide peace in this country. He said, I can't quote him because I don't know the quote, but he said in an interview, he said, there are secular Jews who are contributing vast amounts of money to NGOs like HIAS, who are responsible for the flood of illegals coming into this country, and they are posing a danger to actual Jews. That is a real statement that I believe. I believe that secular Jews are creating a real problem for Jews who are just trying to live peacefully and by the word of their religion. And that was a call for peace from him that was taken in the wrong way. So these are things we have to ask. No one likes to be conspiratorial, but we live in a conspiratorial era. And I think that asking questions is the best way to go about it, to let people understand that there are issues here that are tied to a deeper fate. Netanyahu and Zionist organizations contributed hundreds of millions of dollars to Turning Point USA. And I find it strange that Benjamin Netanyahu felt the need to go on Newsmax the day after it happened and just state that Israel had nothing to do with this. And more importantly, if you're accusing that, that's equivalent to the Holocaust. These are things that just you have to put into the equation.
Of course.
Yeah, Newsmax.
That's my old stopping ground. I saw that. And actually, Bibi Netanyahu has spoken at a Newsmax event rather recently. And I have a lot of questions there. I have not even gotten into this at all, but you remind me of something. I do want to start with what you said about the lots of money that they give to think tanks, to groups like TP USA, to outlets. Okay. To outlets. I'll preface what you said about, I'll go into this later. Let me just write this down. It's so deep. Okay. Well, maybe I'll start there. So it does not surprise me that Netanyahu was on Newsmax the day after. What we do know about Newsmax, thanks to Blaze TV reporting, it was the Blaze, who reported this based on FOIA requests and documents they obtained via those FOIA requests, that Newsmax had taken money from the Biden Health and Human Services Department to push the jab. They got those funds while I was working for them. They asked me multiple times to not be critical of the jabs. Do not be critical. I got complaints from bookers saying, they're canceling any doctors who are critical of the jabs, or publicists say, my client just got canceled last minute. And that's propaganda.
100%.
They were paid to avoid any critical voices of the mandates of the jabs. Chris Ruddy wrote a glowing op-ed praising Biden for his mandate and vaccine rollout policy. So that's the guy you're dealing with there when we're talking about Monday. So am I surprised that Netanyahu gets on Newsmax the day after the assassination? No. You also have to remember that Newsmax had engaged in a coordinated campaign against Tucker Carlson.
Correct.
Dick Morris, Dick Morris from the Clinton administration, Clinton ally, had written several pieces for Newsmax against Tucker Carlson. They had platformed him on TV. They've done show, programming, slamming Tucker Carlson. And then I had heard, and I don't know if this is true because I didn't talk to Grant Stitchfield, who had been a colleague of mine at Newsmax post his departure from Newsmax, but the rumor had been that he had been let go because he refused to do hit pieces on his popular primetime show on Newsmax. Hit pieces.
I like Grant a lot. Yeah.
On Tucker Carlson. And knowing Grant, that lines up with what I know of Grant. I don't believe Grant would entertain that at all. So when I heard that, it was believable to me. But I want to say I don't know that for a fact. That's what I know. And it lines up with the coordinated campaign they were doing against Tucker Carlson. What came out in the last couple of days? I can't remember who said it, but someone said that Israel had offered money to Charlie Kirk, who had a popular podcast,
150 million
to slam Tucker Carlson.
Yeah.
So, I would just ask the question: did Newsmax get paid for that campaign? The Israeli lobby money, which Thomas Massey talks about all the time, which Marjorie Taylor Greene talks about, right? In Congress. We know this well because so many members of Congress have talked about this, particularly Thomas Massey, probably most notably, because he doesn't have one. I guess he just didn't answer the calls, because I can tell you they'll keep calling you even if you don't answer. Has an AIPAC handler, and that's the American Israeli PAC, lobby group.
Mm-hmm. And it's not the only Israeli lobby group.
It's not the only one. Yeah. There are many different entities that have many different names that are pro-Zionist organizations that's aimed at controlling the narrative as it relates to the expansion of Israel. And U.S. dollars going to protect Israel and help it expand.
Correct.
They don't just call congressmen. They call journalists. I'm pretty sure they assign handlers to every journalist that they think has an influential audience or has any influence. I can tell you, and I've not really shared this story around, I've told it to my whole team, the absolute truth. I've told it to multiple people in my community. And, lots of people have heard me say this over the last few months because we laughed about it. I just didn't think about how serious it was. I started getting calls from a pro-Zionist representative a week after President Trump won the 2024 election. It started as, look, I just admire you so much. You're so brave. You're so courageous. I really want to help you. How can I be helpful? How can I help you? And, there was they were weekly. It was weekly calls. No offer of money to me like that, Then about Signalgate. These calls continued regularly. I would pick up, I would sort of laugh a little bit, and then me, I just kind of say things back like, well, you kind of know why you're getting bad PR. You really wonder,
You might want to fix your own issue. Yeah.
So I just kind of say, I'm not combative. I'm just like, well, you do, maybe it's this.
You might have brought it on yourself, right?
And so anyway, Signalgate. Things sort of started to change a little bit. Remember Signalgate back in the spring? Yep. And that's where the encrypted text messages was leaked to a leftist reporter related to Iran strikes. It included Pete Hegseth, Mike Waltz, who was National Security Advisor at the time, J.D. Vance, the vice president, multiple other figures, Alex Wong, who worked for Mike Waltz. During that time, the calls sort of changed a little bit. And they became a little more frequent. And it was, why is Pete Hegseth not with us? Why is he not with us? And I would say, well, I don't know what you're talking about, because even based on the Signal Gate messages, I mean, he sounded like he was pretty pro striking Iran. He was definitely pro striking the Houthis in Yemen. I think he might have questioned the timing based on, you got to think about, certain other, but I didn't notice, and that was just the truth. I didn't notice that he was anti-Israel in
how
any
can you
way.
say that? He is on, and I'll quote Pete Hegseth: Zionism is Americanism. That is a quote from Pete Hegseth at a speech in Israel.
Yeah.
Quote.
I think he pretty much pledged allegiance. I don't understand and that's what I said. I don't understand what your problem with this with him. They said something very interesting to me then. They said, we paid for all of his Fox Nation documentaries. And I said, and this is just a conversation, I have not verified that. Let me just,
Sure.
That's just what was said to me. And I said, no, I did not know that. I had no idea. And I actually haven't seen any of them. So I said, I think Pete's your guy. And if you look at his security detail, a couple of them are wearing yarmulkes. I think you're safe.
Yeah.
And sometimes it was mostly about him, but sometimes they would mention Charlie to me. And they would say, well, why what's going on with Charlie Kirk? Why isn't he with us? Do you hear what he said? And they're like, we've really been very supportive of Charlie. And I said, yeah, I know you have. I said, look, I don't know if they thought I talked to these people, if I was in their sphere of influence. I had not talked to Charlie since probably 2019. I knew a lot of his team members, but see them out some places, but I had no conversations with them. I didn't even watch Charlie's show. So I did not know. I have now, since his assassination, went back and watched some of what he had been saying, and I was quite surprised. Yeah. I was like, wow, he was really going there. And I had not known that. So I mean, they asked me several times about that. I said, and I always said, I have no idea. I don't watch him. I think he, I don't know.
Like, he's your guy. I mean, I did the same thing. I turned off Charlie Kirk because I was like, this guy's a paid Zionist. He is just going to defend at will. And then he started actually asking questions that all of us have. And now he's dead.
And basic questions. And I can tell you, when I had heard that he'd been shot, I won't lie, I just got chills. That's the first thing I thought of.
Me too. I have witnesses to this. When I heard, I said it was probably them.
I had not taken it seriously. I chuckled a little bit when they would ask me about him. Never thought, well, but he obviously knew that they were doing that, because it struck me, there was a text chain he had with another reporter, and they released it. And he had said, I don't know, they're saying I'm not with them. And he used the very language that they had said to me. So he was aware of this campaign, I think, behind the scenes. I think and I think it was meant to be, perhaps. I mean, look, we just have to look at what we see and ask questions. I know my personal experience and the conversations I had had. And then this happens. So I have a ton of questions.
I'm trying to find something here. There's a write-up. I'm trying to quote it, but I can't find it. I'm not going to waste time looking on the phone. There's a write-up in the Times of Israel calling Charlie an evil person. I mean, this is how psyops work, right? One article will say he was a savior. The other one will say that he's a murderer. It's just kind of the way it works. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but like the reporting from Israel is now, it went from Charlie Kirk is like the most blessed American to all of a sudden he is a fascist, misogynist, whatever ist they want to give him. And probably none of it's true. I always find that there's two polar opposite sides of every story, and especially in today's world, and somewhere in the middle is the truth. There's truth from either radical polar opposite side. But yeah, this isn't making, keep going with this. This is maybe the most interesting story, because they keep referring to themselves as us. Who's us?
It's us. And I mean, I just say, no,
you don't know. It's just us.
I just let them talk, and I listen. And if they ask for my opinion or insight, I say, well, it could be this or it could be that. But with Charlie, I just had no, I just literally didn't know what he was saying. And it was not I have not received a call last week or this week for the first time basically since the election.
What do you think about that?
I think it's notable.
It's notable for sure.
My husband asked me yesterday if I had heard from anyone, and I said nope.
Interesting. Through means of deception, thou shalt wage war. Let's talk about that, because this is something I'm not hearing anyone talk about, and I don't know if anyone realizes this stuff. First of all, there is a genocide happening in Palestine. There's ethnic cleansing of Palestinians happening in Palestine at the hands of Israel. And before we get into this, it's important to note that we're talking about the secular state of Israel, not every Jewish person in the world. This is part of a greater plan to create hatred and division, by the way. And notable, it's also prophecy that everyone must hate Israel in order for Israel to have the hand of God save them. So the secular state of Israel is ethnically cleansing Palestinians. This is an undeniable fact. The retorts from this are, if you say that, you're instantly pro-Hamas. I'm not pro-Hamas. I have learned counterterrorism. I am very anti-radical Islam. However, I am also very much a Christian who believes in peace and that every person on earth is God's person. God created them. We are all special. There are no chosen people. Those who are chosen to follow Christ, follow Christ. But I will say this. There is ethnic cleansing happening. The justification is we must eradicate Hamas by all means. Okay, let's look at things. I'm just going to propose this idea to Americans. Hamas is about the size of MS-13. Okay, in America, it's about 20,000 MS-13 gang members. There's about 20,000 members of Hamas. Hamas is more dangerous to America, or excuse me, MS-13 is more dangerous to America than Hamas is to Israel statistically. MS-13 kills more Americans with gun violence, rapes, and overdoses because they are the primary pusher of fentanyl onto our streets, where 100,000 people overdose per year. They are just as dangerous to America as Hamas is to Israel. So the solution being proposed by eradicating all of Gaza to eliminate a street gang is the equivalent of saying that it's okay to drop 100,000 tons of explosives on New York City and Los Angeles to eradicate MS-13. There is no justification for the violence that's taking place there. And anyone supporting this is radicalized and really needs to look in the mirror. But what comes next? Gaza would become a perfect stronghold for defense of Jerusalem, along with the West Bank. Jerusalem holds the key to the future war that they intend to launch. Like, this is a very well written about documentation for 100 years. In the location of the third temple is the Dome of the Rock, which is a beacon of Islam. In order for the third temple to be rebuilt, to bring the Mashiach, the Jewish Messiah, to earth, the Dome of the Rock must be removed. That location is sacred to both people. Once Gaza is conquered, which it's going to be, they are going to kill as many people as humanly possible with as much force as possible, and no one's going to stop them. That's apparent right now. That stronghold, along with the West Bank, will provide a defense mechanism for them to begin to invade into Jerusalem and claim that as their chosen land as well. This will cause confrontation with the Muslim nations over the Dome of the Rock, which is what I fear that eventually the American Zionist Christians who have been brainwashed for 120 years will support a war against Islam. How does Charlie fit into this equation? Charlie fits into this equation perfectly. He will stoke the ones who are anti-Israel from his recent comments. And for the last 6 months, I still remember a comment I made on one of Charlie's posts on Twitter. He said, Islam is the biggest problem in America. And I said, oh, I forgot. Does the I in AIPAC mean Islam? Because I don't see them with over influence in our government. So I fear that they will use his rhetoric as anti-Islam. Charlie Kirk, a defender of Israel, hated Islam. Now that he's dead, you need to follow him. We need to conquer the Muslims and reclaim the Dome of the Rock as the third temple. This is what I believe is coming next. Whether it's right or wrong, it's just my assumption by looking at 150 years of history and tons of information in the last decade.
Well, I know that having grown up in an evangelical and a Pentecostal household, obviously many evangelicals welcome that scenario as well, because to them that signals the end. And it's actually become a point of debate in a lot of the churches around me that I've been to, because it does seem that even in the evangelical community now, there's some people who are splitting off from that, right? So there's now being this debate. which growing up, I accepted that as the truth because that's what I was taught. And as I've gotten older, I questioned it. I do want to get back to the Islamic threat because what I will say,
it's real. That's a real threat.
there is a real threat, right? But that's all we've been focused on. That's
Yep.
all we focus on. And it is a real threat. And there has been an infiltration of the Muslim Brotherhood,
Absolutely.
for instance, particularly into Democratic or presidencies like Obama. I mean, they were welcomed at the White House. You don't want the Muslim Brotherhood welcomed into the White House. And then there's also Qatari funds that flow into the media. And so the people who are not, like, say, paid by AIPAC or Israel, it is so rare. We have a real problem with our politicians and our media being bought off. And, we do hear a lot about the Qatar funds, and that's very real.
Very real.
But we're only talking about one side of all of this. And as someone who tries to have a wide range of voices on and experts on the topic, right? I see a lot of foreign policy wonks, analysts who are simply focused on the Islamic threat.
Yes.
I think a lot of that was because there was a lot of money that went into that, right? It made a whole industry in Washington, D.C. post 9/11. So, you could get funding and grants if you were very focused on the Islamic threat.
Yes.
And so I think that's a lot of why we have, an imbalance to that. But there's other threats, as you're noting, and they don't look the same, right? People don't understand sometimes what a threat really looks like. And I was very surprised that Charlie, when I went back and watched, was saying this, because this is a completely different Charlie than what I knew back in the day in like 2019. He had definitely made an evolution on a number of topics, I would say. And here's where their real worry, here's where the real fear, because you're talking about the end goal. I admit I'm not as well versed as you are on that. And so this is very interesting for me to hear. I feel like I'm getting a history lesson, and this is very interesting. I'll go back and watch more of your videos where you talk about it. Where a major problem with this plan is too, is that they don't have the youth, right? So I think that the influence has changed. So if, as you say, they're working on a timeline, we're at a transition point, I think, in our society.
Very much so. Very much so. It reminds me of Malcolm Gladwell's book, The Tipping Point, right? So the tipping point, inflection point, kind of this point of no return where you make a decision left or right and straightforward, whatever it may be. In that book, he talks about something called the broken window theory. And the broken window theory states that if you have a broken window in your house and you don't fix it, people walk by every day, or they drive by every day, and they see a broken window. And subconsciously, what that says is, it's okay to have a broken window. So if my window breaks, I don't have to fix it. It also tells people subconsciously it's okay to break windows. We are living at the end of a broken window theory. AIPAC has too much influence. No one talks about CARE, the Islamic PACs that pour money into everything.
Everything.
And the Qataris. So Qatar, Israel blames Qatar for everything. No one ever talks about CARE ever, who has infiltrated every campus in America. So they're actually fighting against Turning Point USA. It's quick to jump to Israel, but the problem here is foreign influence, which George Washington warned us about. George Washington warned us about foreign influence in our government. We have every faction that goes against the values of the creation of this country influencing those who make laws. This is a huge problem. And I put a post out today that got instant hate from some people and instant love from others. And this is just factual. Can we stop saying that America was founded on Judeo-Christian values? Because that's a lie. It was founded on Christian values in 1776. The term Judeo-Christian began at the exact same time as the Zionist movement in the mid-1800s.
Schofield Bible.
Schofield Bible in 1908. The whole Zionist propaganda campaign began a long time ago, but this country was founded on Christian values, not Jewish values and not Islamic values.
Have you read the book Dark Crusade?
I have
by
not. I'm going to write
Cliff
it down.
Kirikoff. He goes through the political history of the Zionist movement in the United States. He just redid a new edition of the book. The book, I think it was originally published 20 years ago, and he just updated it, I believe, last year.
A
Kind of
lot to
ahead.
update.
It was precious. Yeah, it was almost ahead of some of, what we're seeing now. He would be an excellent guest for you to have.
Absolutely. Dark Crusade. I'm going to order that
He
immediately.
actually had been the top staffer on the Foreign Relations Committee under Senator Jesse Helms back in the day.
He was allowed on that committee
Mhm.
after writing that book?
The very well-respected thinker, scholar, and analyst in Washington, D.C. I believe he's taught at multiple institutions.
That is really interesting. And this is a part of American history we don't understand, because the term Judeo-Christian started in the mid-1800s. Popular, you can go on like Google search for word usage in old publications. You can find this stuff for yourself. The actual word amplified right after World War II. All of a sudden, we became a Judeo-Christian nation, right? But however, people don't realize that this country was founded on Christian values in 1776, not Judeo-Christian. Now, we're all God's people. We have to love one another, but we shouldn't contort history to make our narrative fit at a time of crisis. This is what happens all the time. I think that we are heading down a dark road. And I don't know that there's any turning back, because the fact of the matter is Israel doesn't care if the world knows that they're slaughtering people. They do not care. The secular state of Israel is not the Israel of the Bible. I think anyone who has done any research realizes this. And even if it was, God would not command people to slaughter innocent people who are also Semitic. Palestinians are Semitic. The most anti-Semitic thing in the world happening right now is Israel killing Semites. This is so strange.
And the Epstein operation.
Of course.
And no matter how you try to spin it, we spent years understanding and kind of not outright, but being hinted to that this guy was an asset. I'll remember that in the first Trump administration, when Alex Acosta was ousted, and that was for his involvement in the plea deal, the sweetheart deal that Epstein got in Florida, where he had been a U.S. attorney. Alex Acosta was sort of surprised that he was getting this kind of pushback all of a sudden. Of course, the left was using it to get him out, right? Because they were targeting every Trump administration official. But he was surprised because he had talked about this in his interviews, his screening to be in the Trump administration. And to him, he said, well, I was just told this guy's an asset. He's an intelligence asset. And so we do this kind of sweetheart deal. And I'm not really supposed to touch him, in so many words. And I keep reminding people, God would not be okay. I'm not okay with our children being raped and trafficked. I'm not okay with it for our national security. I don't want that for America to keep. I don't believe you have to make a deal with the devil to keep yourself safe. I just don't.
I agree.
And speaking of those conversations, I was talking about when we were talking about this Zionist operative, what their problems are and why they're losing the youth, and why they're the opinion of Israel has tanked over the last few months. I said, look, this Epstein files is as big of a problem for you all as it is for Donald Trump. And this is the first mistake he's made in this term, but it's a big one. A big one. And no one can overlook that. And I said, and everybody knows, because I'm fishing for confidence. Everybody knows he's your guy. And they said, when you're talking with spooks and things, you're always talking these terms. It always makes me laugh, because it is. I think everybody does adopt these like movie terms, and I think I do that too. Come to think of it, I feel so cheesy right now. But they're like, yeah, he's our guy, but you have to understand he's Ehud Barak's guy. Remember, the former prime minister and the Israeli intelligence chief top spy. He's not Netanyahu's guy. He's Barak's guy. Netanyahu, he doesn't agree with any of that. I said, so he's not benefiting off the blackmail? No, it's that's the old guard. I'm like, that's what I did. That's what I did. Okay.
It's always the old guard, not the new guy. No. That
It's
can't
not
be the
BB.
case.
He was before that.
Let's not forget one key element to the original Epstein arrest that would lead anyone to believe that he's an asset of the state of Israel. He was convicted of a crime of trafficking young girls, underage kids, having sex with underage kids. And after being convicted, he was allowed to leave the nation, which no other criminal convicted of a felony has been allowed to do in my memory. And he went to Israel for a few days, then came back, then served his 9 months or whatever it was for his heinous crime. These are obvious facts. These are not assumptions. And why can't we just say it? That's the question I have. Is it the Samson option that we're afraid of? Is it nuclear warfare with a nuclear nation that no one knows just how nuclear they are? But we do know they have nuclear weapons because they stole them. Like, we know that as well. These are all facts.
Right. The Pollard.
Yeah. So many twisted things about this that like only people like you and I who like dig into these things and are curious about it constantly. The average person has no idea of this history at all. Just like the average Christian doesn't know that God's chosen people are those who follow Jesus Christ. We're all grafted into the same vine. Like it's clear and obvious. So just propaganda is everywhere. How do you sort through this stuff daily? I do like 3 or 4 podcasts a week and I'm on social media.
I pray
for
a
me,
lot.
it's easy. That's probably a good place to start.
I do pray for discernment and wisdom.
Yeah.
Because it is difficult. And I've always said this, a lot of my life has led to me being able to reach between the lines. I now realize that, every event in my life has prepared me for this moment. I did get educated in journalism, but I wouldn't say it was like the best school. It wasn't like the best journalistic education. What I realized is like, that's actually a good thing, because when I met my colleagues and, particularly in the White House press corps that went to the premier schools of journalism, it was appalling because we know they're just propagandists for the most part. So I think that was a blessing and probably part of the plan. I rely on help from God, but I also, a lot is I didn't necessarily intend to be successful in journalism, so I didn't.
Well, you have.
I know, but that wasn't originally my plan.
And if you just took a few more of those calls, you'd be even more financially successful, Emerald. Just a few more of those calls.
A lot more money, but I could not go to bed at night and sleep. And at the end of the day, like Charlie Kirk, I want my reward to be in heaven. Okay. And I have small children, and I want them to have some semblance of a world where they can live free and be God-fearing. And I don't know. I just felt like I was called to the fight. And the moment that God releases me, believe me, I'll be happy to be released.
I'm the exact same way. I can't wait for this stuff to all be over and just go fishing. Yeah. Just give me a fishing pole and let me forget about the rest of it.
I'll talk about health and beauty.
I'll stop talking altogether once the truth is actually known. The other things that like we kind of got to throw in here, on the day of Charlie Kirk's assassination, our Congress denied the Epstein files to be released, 5149.
Yeah.
They also passed a bill that any U.S. contractor who boycotts an Israel corporation will be banned from doing business with the United States government. Mm-hmm. They are now placing IDF soldiers in TikTok and on social media to ban anti-Semitism, which is free speech, by the way, no matter how you shape it. It's free speech. The Bolsheviks in Russia, who were mostly ethnically Jewish, created the illegal nature of anti-Semitism, which is opposite of free speech. So if you're for that, then you are communist, right? That's just one way to think of it. Free speech is a beacon of freedom. And in this trying time that we're in right now, I think that we are going to see psyops to radicalize people against Jewish people, radicalize people against Muslims, radicalize. You don't have to radicalize against Christianity. We've already gone through 20 years of anti-Semitism called anti-Christianity for 20 years. For white people and Christians, we've been going through this in the media for 20 years. No one stopped that. No one stopped it. No one stepped in and said, we need to censor social media. Just let it go. But now we're in this era where the more they put their foot on the pedal to ban free speech, the worse it's going to get. And I pray every day that people keep their level head. And just in the words of Rudyard Kipling in his poem, if you can keep your head while all others around you are losing theirs. The world is yours, and you will be a man, my son. These are very important times to focus in on your faith, on your family, on your sanity. You know, we have these people, there's people everywhere, right? There are plenty of people who are showing video. It's usually 3 videos. It's not every video, but 3 videos show this could be fake. And they fake Charlie
Yeah.
Kirk's death. Let me, and I always ask, maybe, like, I don't know if it's fake or real. I know AI is real because I work in AI. I can see AI. You can modify videos. I'm not saying it is or isn't. The 5D chess thing too, right? Like, I don't know. I'm not seeing it because all I've seen is patriots get arrested, everyone's poor, and Christians are being persecuted. But at the end of the day, what would be the purpose of faking someone's death? And then the answer I always get is to lead people to God. Look how many people are going to church. Well, show me in the Bible where it shows me that deception will lead you to God. Like, these are things that we all need to think about. God, the last thing God would want for you to come to his heart is through deception, period.
Well, I think you bring up an excellent point. And as we look at going forward, these psyops have already gone Richter. I mean, let's be honest, since the first Trump term, it's just been one continual psyop in one form or another that they've tried to use against the American people. But what they can successfully do now with the, with the perfecting of artificial intelligence is make it very difficult for people to know whether they can believe what's in front of their face. That's what we could use to rely on, right? I saw it with my own eyes. We can't rely on that anymore. So I think we really have to rely on divine discernment. And we get that by drawing closer to God and in our walk in prayer and reading. And I know that's what I have taken away from the last week.
I agree. Yeah, there's so much stuff we don't know, and there's so much stuff we're never going to know. And I think that things happen, and they're just things. They're not good, they're not bad. It's how you deal with them. Even Charlie said you find out a lot about people when other people die. Like, that's what Charlie said. So if we look at these quotes throughout history or just our lives in general, I think that we find that at the end of the day, we have to learn to control the things we can control and to pay attention to the world. I mean, it's going to determine where our safety lies, right? And I think that we are approaching a very difficult time of radicalization on every group, Christian, Muslim, Jew, American, Israeli, all these, everyone is getting radicalized and dividing. This never ends well throughout history. It just never has. It always ends in bloodshed. And I don't want to be the one to say that, nor am I a fear porn dealer. I'm also not a hopium dealer or a copium addict. So like, those things do not exist in my, I'm I call balls and strikes. I'm an umpire, not a player in the game. I have no role in the game. But if I'm calling balls and strikes, I think that we're looking towards a deeper agenda that many people aren't noticing. I think the Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem is going to come into the news very soon. I was accurate at this when I was using the word deterrence. When the nuclear threat started, I called that about 2 months in advance, saying deterrence will be a word that you hear in the media. Everyone said, what does that mean? And 2 months later, we were talking about nuclear deterrence. I think Dome of the Rock and Jerusalem are coming into play. I think this is an intended plan for the Greater Israel Project, which is not conspiracy theory. These are the words of Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, has stated that he wants these other nations as part of a Greater Israel plan. Now, we also have the threat of true Islamic sleeper cells in this country. This has been a fact since Obama endorsed CARE and allowed that to happen. There's a lot of things happening. So at the end of the day, you have all this chaos that you could focus on, all the scary chaos in the world that you want. But it's so easy to close the door, get on your knees, and have a conversation with God. Everything becomes normal again. So take your time out for all that stuff. And then I got to ask you a couple of questions to wrap this out and make it funny, okay? Because it's been serious. Okay, so you work with Mike Lindell.
I do.
I think everybody loves Mike Lindell. I don't know how do you answer the phone and know it's Mike Lindell? Because when I close my eyes and hear his voice, all I hear is Jesse Ventura. Like, how do you tell the difference?
Well, it's funny. I'll tell you, when I answer the phone, I usually don't talk for the next 5 minutes. I say hello, and it's about 5 minutes of Mike Lindell, and I try to fit in my 2 seconds of what I needed to tell him. That's funny. He does sound a lot like Jesse Ventura.
He does, right? Like, it's like when I heard him talking one day, and I was like, "Is that I thought Jesse passed or something?" Like, I hadn't heard, and I was like, "No, that's Mike Lindell. He sounds just like him." And then the other side of the fence, we got to do something about these slippers. Okay, my buddy Bobby, He was going around the corner. His slipper blew. His Mike Lindell slipper blew out. He about blew his knee out.
Oh
We got to do something
no.
about these slippers and
Which
get them
one
handled.
are they? See,
I don't know.
the My Slipper moccasins are my favorite My Pillow product. I buy them in every color, and I'm actually wearing them right now.
I
In
have
full
4 My Pillows
disclosure,
myself.
I wear the My Slipper moccasins every day, all day. But I will pass that along because I can tell you, Mike Lindell is very passionate about the quality of his product, as was on full display when they leaked that deposition in the Eric Coomer case,
That's true.
where the
True.
lawyer accuses him of having lumpy My Pillows, and they thought they were going to link it and make Mike look bad, but it only further endeared him to the American public because they realized how passionate and how much he really believes in his My Pillows. It was great.
His
So
facial
I'll pass that
expression
along.
in the interview was amazing too, where he just got so mad, like
He
so
was
mad.
he said he told me he was shaking.
No, I just had to throw that out there because they saw our last interview. My buddy's like, "Hey, she works for Lindell. Tell him I blew out my slipper." I'm like, "I
I'll tell
will."
him.
I'm like, "I will." He's like, "No, you won't." And I'm like, "I will tell him. I will tell her
Yeah, I
about the
know
slipper."
what he's going to do. Mike's going to ask me for his address, so go ahead and get your friend's address, and Mike will probably send
That's
him a
not
new
the
hair.
intention. No, I'm just teasing him. I'm just
That's what
teasing
he'll
him.
do. I know it.
Well, Emerald, thank you so much.
Yes.
These topics need to be addressed. We have so many questions that need to be answered. At the end of the day, you know what the problem in the world is? It's filled with good people. And if you can't find one, be one. That's just the solution in this world. Like, it's just time to step back, to call everything out. Ephesians 5:11, do not participate in the fruitless deeds of darkness, but rather expose them. Christians have forgotten this. Do not remain silent. If anything, Charlie Kirk's death, collusion, conspiracy, fake death, whatever it may be in this world that you believe in, at the end of the day, the purpose is what God delivers, not the event. And the purpose is to speak the truth, not your truth, the truth into the world, ask questions, work together. American people need to work together. You need to have sessions like this where we're just talking about things. We don't plan these conversations at all. And I have ideas I need to go research. You have ideas we need to go research, and then help each other out. Stop waiting for the government to save you. It's not going to happen. It's never happened in the existence of governments, which we break down the word govern and ment. It literally defines mind control. Govern is to control, ment is of the mind. That is what the term means. We have to break that spell together and working together in harmony. It is not American versus American. It is us versus tyrants. And we've got to be able to shed all the left versus right, Republican versus Democrat. There's good versus evil. Find good people and make more of them. That's what we need to do. So Emerald Robinson, let everybody know how they can follow you and how they can stay in touch. I know you got Substack, you've got a show, you've got social media. Let everybody know, give them their handles. We'll put it out on the interview.
Will do. You can find my Substack where I go into a lot of detailed analysis like we discussed here at emerald.tv. I also include my source links and information. You can subscribe there. You can follow me on X where I'm very feisty at Emerald Robinson. And you can watch my show daily, Monday through Friday on Lindell TV, lindelltv.com. Download us on Roku.
Absolutely. Well, Emerald, as always, God bless you. God bless this country. And we'll see you all next time.
Likewise.